Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rafe Mair, former BC Cabinet Minister and Canada's longest-running #1 radio talk show host. Welcome to the show, Rafe.
Nice to be with you, Jim.
Well, I don't know if Thomas Mulcair, the NDP leader, can make it or not, because I haven't seen any Conservative-sponsored ads yet trashing him like they've trashed young Mr. Justin Trudeau.
I think they're going to stay clear of him a little bit. You know, it's a long time until October, whenever the hell it is, but Mulcair's on a bit of a roll right now, and I think they're going to just sort of let him go for a while, and they haven't got much on him, really. You know, that's the problem. He's been pretty good, stayed out of trouble, and so I don't know what they're going to do, but I guess that will be the sure sign that he is doing well, is when the Tories start to take a whack at him.
Well, the Tories in Alberta underestimated the NDP. Do you think the federal Conservatives are doing the same thing?
Well, I think what's happened here, Jim, is that the Alberta NDP have given sort of an air of possibility to the NDP that wasn't there before nationally. I think people will be saying in other parts of Canada, my God, if they can win in Alberta, maybe they can win. And nobody really cares to vote for somebody that isn't going to win, except the diehards, of course. But most people, when they're going with their hat pinned into the voting booth, they kind of like to have a winner. And if you're seen as a winner, I think that's a few points in the poll, and I think that's what Alberta's done for Mulcair.
Well, so far, Mr. Harper has still been hiding, ducking under every bush he can find, it seems, to stay away from the media. I mean, I didn't see him front and center to accept the Truth and Reconciliation report. Mr. Mulcair seemed to be there. Mr. Trudeau did. Where was Harper?
I don't know what's the matter with him, I honestly don't. I know that he tends to keep whatever appeal he has for the far right and not worry about anybody else. And I guess by staying away from the Aboriginal conference or press conference, that would appeal to the far right that don't believe that Indians should ever have anything anytime. But, it's hard, it's puzzling for me as an ex-politician. I mean, those are the kind of things you just grab onto. Now I notice that the mainstream media gave him a nice picture kissing an elderly First Nations lady. I don't know where the hell that came from, but the story underneath the photograph wasn't very good. But it's strange to me. I mean, there's just some things, Jim, for a politician, it's just a slam dunk. You just do them. I mean, little kids in school, that sort of stuff, you just do it. And here is a huge thing. Now, he may be worried that he's going to commit himself to too much, but Jim, right now, the way the mood is in this country, if you're not going to commit yourself to giving Aboriginal people full justice, you're in a hell of a lot of trouble.
Well, I went to one of those Indian Affairs schools, last half of grade 2, first half of grade 3 in Meander River, Alberta, way just south of the Northwest Territories, and they abused those kids something fierce. If they talked their own native language, they were given the strap, told to sit outside in the cold, stuff like that.
Well, it's a disgusting blot on our escutcheon, and all of us, I think, share a certain amount of blame because we didn't do anything. We sort of turned a blind eye, and I feel, and I'm sure a lot of Canadians feel the same way. How come we didn't know all about this? Well, we didn't know about this maybe the way people in Germany didn't know about the Jews. They knew, but they didn't want to ask too much for fear they really knew. And I guess that's what happened to a lot of us. And I think the people of Canada are now coming to the party a little bit late, but it's there. And as I say, the Aboriginal peoples have come a hell of a long way in the last few years. And politicians that don't take cognizance of that are really in the soup.
Well, it wasn't until recent history that Aboriginals were given the right to vote in Canada.
Oh, yeah. It's just in the 1940s, as I recall, about 1949. And, here are these, the Native Indians, I think, were the highest ethnic volunteer group in the Canadian Armed Forces during the war. So here were all these Indian veterans coming back from the war to their various reservations, and not allowed to vote. I mean, you know, when you think back on it, it's just appalling. It's bad enough what we did to Oriental people and so on, but here are our own brother citizens, go back thousands and thousands of years before you and me and anybody else that you and me you and I go around with, and then they don't have the vote. It's just appalling. You know, Jim, I don't want to sound like I'm a goody two-shoes because I was no better than anybody else. And I grew up as a kid. My father and mother told me they were a bunch of drunks and not worthy of paying much attention to. And, you know, it was just one of those things. They were on reservations, and better to keep them there, and on and on and on and on it went. And I didn't do any serious questioning until I got into government and was sort of thrust into it, particularly in Kamloops, so the Kamloops Indian Band, and a bridge that the Department of Transportation wanted to build. And slowly I got involved in this thing, and I began to realize how wrong I was. And of course, at the same time, the Supreme Court of Canada was telling all of us how wrong we were. And, you know, once the dam broke, well, it broke in a big time way. But I don't want people to think, oh, there's Rafe Mair saying he was a wonderful guy towards Aboriginal peoples, because I wasn't. I was just the same as everybody else, and perhaps in some cases worse.
Well, I just looked it up on the internet. Aboriginals weren't allowed to vote in Canada until 1960. Before that, they had to give up their Aboriginal status.
Oh, it was 1960, was it? Yeah. Well, I knew that it was very late on, and I suppose I was thinking perhaps of the Japanese and Chinese was around 1949. Well, that just makes the point even more strongly, doesn't it? You know, they say here were the Native Indians coming back from the wars and having fought in greater numbers per capita than anybody else in Canada, and not even they're fighting for a country they can't even vote in. I mean, it's remarkable when you think about it.
Yes, and they were very good. I remember, I think one reserve in Saskatchewan had the most medal winners of any Aboriginal outfit. Again, they came home. They weren't allowed to drink. They weren't allowed to vote.
I know. Well, you know, and I don't think we'll ever make up for that. I know a lot of people now are saying, oh, well, now we've apologized officially, and now we've got this reconciliation, et cetera, and now we've got that study will go into a special book in the House of Commons, and there'll be legislation, and so all is forgiven. Well, I don't think it's that easy, unfortunately, and it'll take a long time before all is forgiven. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think there are forgiving people, but forgotten, no. And I think it'll be a long time before that happens.
We'll have more with Rafe Mair right after this.
More and more people are looking to the internet for intelligent, riveting, and thought-provoking interviews. To advertise on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com, call 604-699-8600, 604-699-8600.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rafe Mair. Rafe, getting back to federal politics, if the NDP really wants to take a stab at forming the next national government, is there anything special they need to do, or should they just stay the course and let Mr. Harper stumble?
Well, it's very difficult to say in other provinces, you know, Joe. We all like to pretend we've got a feeling on the pulse, but we don't. I just wrote an article for the Common Sense Canadian, and I said if I had up-to-date, carefully assessed information from every single constituency in the country, I'm not sure that I would be well enough equipped to make any kind of a prediction across the country. You don't have a feel for these other places and so on. Having said that, I think that two things. I think that there is a different atmosphere towards the NDP right across the country right now, and I think that assuming that nothing goes terribly wrong, I think they've got a much better base from which to work than they've ever had before. In British Columbia, and I said this in print just the other day, Thomas Mulcair, and a lot of people won't like this, he has got to come out strongly against Kinder Morgan. I haven't counted the seats, Jim, but there must be 10 or 11 seats in and around the greater Vancouver area that are impacted by Kinder Morgan, not to mention the ones up in the interior, that if he doesn't come out against it, he's going to be in trouble. I think the people are against it, and I don't know whether his folks are telling him that, but they are. You know that, I know that, you sense it, and if he doesn't come out against it, I think he's going to be in a lot of trouble. On the other side of that coin, if he does come out against it, come out strongly against it, I think he's going to be in pretty good shape in British Columbia, and I think he's going to need British Columbia in order to win.
Now, there has been talk of a Liberal NDP coalition. Mr. Mulcair says he's in favor of it. I haven't heard anything from Trudeau. Would somebody have to park an ego somewhere to allow that to happen?
Oh, of course it will. And you know, I'm kind of an old man now, Jim, but I've heard that talk for as long as I can remember. Not necessarily those two parties, but two parties along the way. And it never seems to happen. And I guess there are lots of reasons for it. A lot of times it's at the top. Many times it's in the guts of the two various organizations involved. They've been fighting each other and screaming at each other for so long that they just can't bury the hatchet. But there's no doubt about it that if they did, if the Liberals and the NDP could and did, they would be, I think, a force that would, well, you couldn't reckon with it. I think they would win and win handily.
Because I think it's the split between the votes between the NDP and Liberals that allowed the Conservatives to come up the middle last time.
Oh, sure. But we haven't mentioned the Greens either, and this is one that puzzles me because my sense of it is they're doing better than their polling indicates, but that may be because I'm in a constituency where they're doing very well indeed, and I think they'll take this constituency. So I may be affected by what my neighbors are telling me and not what common sense is telling me. But Elizabeth May, apart from that little tippling incident in the party, she's been doing very, very well, and she attracts very big crowds. She makes a lot of sense. I think that the book she wrote has done her a lot of good, and I think that she's a player. Now, when I say that, I don't mean she's going to form the government, not at all, but I think she's a bigger player than the numbers presently indicate.
How much is it going to hurt the other parties now the Tories have taken away national support from taxpayers?
From what, sorry, Jim?
Well, before parties would get a proportionate amount of money from Ottawa according to how many votes they got, but they've had that taken away.
I don't know how much it's going to. I'm not up to date on the finances of various political parties. I always thought that it was a fair idea, but I kept being bothered by this. If you're a small party and you're just getting a small amount of money, how do you ever get your percentage up in order to get a big sum of money? But in any event, I thought that it was a good idea. I think that it softens the impact of private money on the political process, but I don't know what the impact is going to be on the various different parties. I really don't.
Well, one unofficial source of revenue is the taxpayer when it comes to government ads. Running ads telling you that our budget may contain this or might contain this. When was the last time a government said we could do something and ran ads about it until it was a accomplished fate?
Well, that's been scandalous as long as I can remember. And going back to when I was in government, I think we misbehaved as a government. I know that when the NDP got in, they said they would never do that. But remarkably, a lot of ads that came out when the NDP were in seemed to be talking about the policies they brought in and how wonderful they were. So it's a bad thing, and it favors the government, of course, because they're able to use public money to do these things. But everybody says they're going to do something about it, but it's been with us for as long as I can remember. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing something about it. But Jim, this really gets on to another subject. I don't want to belabor it. If we ever manage to get some sort of fair voting system in this country where MPs actually have some power, we have minority governments, which are a good thing in my view, I think we may get rid of some of these things, and it'll be a much better thing. But as long as we have a winner-take-all attitude in Canada and British Columbia, the winners are going to take all.
Well, yeah, I resent having a majority government when fewer than 40% of the population voted for that person.
Oh, it's ridiculous. And if you want to, it's kind of scandalous enough just looking at Alberta, but take a look at Great Britain in their last election. I mean, it's preposterous what's happened in their first past the post. And a lot of people over there want to do something about it, and of course a lot of people in Canada do, but it's so outdated, it's so bad, but the worst part of it is, bad as it is, it's been abused by the parties in Parliament so that they have ironclad control and exercise it over all of their members. So not only is it unfair getting members in there, once the members are in there, the system works to put them in jail, and it's just not right. We've got to do something about it.
Yeah, people don't understand the popular vote and how many seats you get are two different things.
Oh, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I know when they talked about reform in BC, the system was so complicated. I mean, I took math for business at BCIT and I was befuddled by it.
With the STV.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But it was complicated. But, Jim, in order to get away from just the simple first past the post, you're going to introduce an element of complication into it. So voters are going to have to smarten up and figure these things out. I think one of the dangers here is, or one of the problems here is, and Canadians are terrible for this, we always make perfection the enemy of improvement. So if we can't come up with something that's absolutely perfect for everybody, we say, oh, the hell with that, we might as well stick with the old way. Well, in New Zealand, they got a pretty good active debate going back in the 80s, and they came up with a system which seems to be pretty good. Now, I got to laugh at this because in my better health days, I went down to New Zealand to fish every year, and I was there throughout the whole thing, and I knew a lot of people down there very well. And they just couldn't wait to get rid of the first past the post. Then after the new MMP had been in there for a few years, I would say to my friends, well, how do you like the new system? Oh, it's terrible. It's awful. We've got to get rid of it. Well, would you go back to the old system? Oh, no. We'd never, ever do that. So, again, no matter what we get, we're not going to be satisfied with it, which doesn't mean we can't and shouldn't do better.
Should we have more national referendums on major issues like the Irish had on the issue of gay marriage?
I think it's a pretty good idea. We're not used to participating in Canada. We shy away from that sort of thing. It's almost as if we're scared of them. And as such, that when you take a look at the referendum provisions in the laws of British Columbia about recall and so on, they make the rules so tough that even though it looks on the surface that you could recall somebody, in fact it's impossible. So we're somehow scared of democracy here. And, I'm going a little far afield, as I sometimes do, Jim, but I go back to the beginning. One of the key problems in Canada is we never had a revolution. Now, I'm not saying I'm in favor of bloodshed. I'm simply saying that when people have a revolution, they do it for a reason, and usually principles come out of that revolution that stay with future governments, even no matter what they are. The United States is a very good example of it. So is France. Anywhere you look, the things that have come out of bloodshed, not out of negotiation. Now, we had nothing like that. We were sort of thrown together at the end of the American Civil War. We were scared of the United States, and we're all British, and we all loved the Queen and that sort of stuff, and we just sort of sauntered into this arrangement, which mainly was between very wealthy males, and they looked after themselves. And so we never had a sort of a national sense of participation in public affairs as they've had, for example, the United States. Now, don't misunderstand me. I wouldn't go live in the United States for all the money in the world. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that at least on the surface, they have a better system. And in fact, the United States is far more used to debating things in public and having town hall meetings and that sort of thing than we are. And it's too bad.
Well, they do have regular referendums in their state elections.
Oh, of course they do. They have initiatives. They have sometimes dozens of them going at one time. And, people complain about their system. The problem with the American system is not the system itself, is that they've allowed money to get to be so paramount that it's kind of conquered everything. They haven't learned how to control that. That's not the system's fault. That's the people themselves. But the system, on the face of it, and in lots of ways it works, as you say, with initiatives and town hall meetings and so on, it works very well.
Well, a friend of mine tried to start a democracy first movement where people could vote every day on issues that came up in Parliament. With modern technology, smartphones and iPads and so on, it's not impossible for Canadians to take part every day. And of course, the government did everything they could to shoot that down directly.
Well, I don't think that I would go along with that. And I'll tell you why. Jim, I've been there, and there are some issues that really take some study before you know what they're all about. And they take the kind of study that you and I, doing our daily chores here, simply haven't got the time, the ability, the inclination to do. So to do it on a daily basis and have me voting on things every day that I really don't know a hell of a lot about, I don't think that's a good idea. However, I think that if you give you and me and others 2 or 3 weeks or a month or whatever it may be to look at the issue, study the issue, and come up with our intentions, our opinions, I think that's better than the system we have, where it's done on a strictly political basis for the benefit of the politicians and not the people. So I think it's a little bit of a compromise we need there.
Well, I mean, I asked him, have you sat for hours watching politicians debate where to put the next sewer and water main lines? I mean, I have, covering City Hall. Yeah. And he said, well, that would be unbelievably boring. And I said, yes, it would.
Yeah, well, of course, at least at City Hall, there is an actual debate going on, and the votes count. And in our parliaments and legislatures, the debates are sham, and they're all done as a set piece operation, and the result is known long before the matter's even tabled in the House. So, we don't have debates; we just call them that.
Yes, I've noticed in question period, rarely is a question ever answered.
Oh well, in question period, it's the art of putting a statement with a question mark at the end of it, and that always has been. And then people don't understand this, but in the House of Commons, the vast majority of questions that are asked have been prearranged by the leaders of the parties. And if you watch the members a lot of the time, unless it's the leaders or the critic, they are reading their questions because those questions have been given to them. It's one of those things that if anybody would say, should you have a question period in the House of Commons? People say, of course you should. Good idea. You ask, well, should that be fixed so that the members of Parliament are merely ciphers spouting out the words? Oh, no, that's a bad idea. So, there we are. We've got something that looks good, but in practice isn't.
Rafe, always fun talking to you.
Thanks, Jim. It's always fun talking to you anytime.
And October 19th, I guess we get to find out who's going to be the next boss. My guest has been Rafe Mair, former BC Cabinet Minister and Canada's longest-running #1 radio talk show host. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Check out our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Comments about the show can be sent to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.